In the lush jungles of Teranova, a human colony on the fringe of known space, life flourished under a canopy of vibrant greenery and humming technology. Sarah, a devoted mother, lived for her son Daniel, a clever boy with a boundless imagination and an infectious laugh that echoed through their home. But tranquility is a precarious illusion, one that shattered one fateful night when the iridescent sky darkened with the looming threat of invading raiders. A piercing alarm rang, its shrill cry cutting through the stillness like a knife. Shadows fell over Teranova as hulking spacecraft descended, their vessels reflecting greed and malice. As the ground shook with the impact of their landing, Sarah's heart raced. She could feel the pulse of dread rising, a cold sweat breaking on her brow. Armed figures streamed from the ships, monstrous and ruthless, with no caution for the lives they were about to destroy. As chaos erupted, Sarah swiftly grabbed Daniel, her instincts roaring to life. Screams filled the air, mingling with the guttural shouts of the invaders as they descended upon her community like a merciless storm. In a frenzy, she fought fiercely, determined to shield her son from the nightmare unfolding. But just as hope flickered, Daniel was ripped from her embrace, a writhing figure taken against his will, his terrified eyes pleading for help, a sight which would haunt Sarah forever. Blinded by fury, Sarah was struck down, collapsing as darkness closed in. With her last breath before unconsciousness, she vowed to a universe that had betrayed her. She would hunt down those responsible and claim retribution. When she awoke, the remnants of her life lay in ruin. The Galactic Council, a complacent body too far removed from human experience, marked her as a primitive anomaly, discounting the depths of her emotion. But Sarah was more than grief. She was a force awakened, her heart ignited by revenge and the desperate will of a mother. Unbeknownst to the galaxy, she was about to unleash a wrath so profound it would resonate across civilizations, a storm of vengeance that would shatter their misconceptions of humanity forever. The days following the raid stretched into a suffocating agony, each tick of the clock a reminder of her fractured existence. Empty echoes filled the space where laughter had once resided. Haunted by sleepless nights and nightmares of her child, Sarah dwelled in memories like a ghost reliving past horrors. The vibrant life she had built was now overshadowed by darkness, grief coiling around her like a vice. One evening, illuminated by the flickering amber light of a dying lamp, Sarah found herself clutching a small framed photograph of Daniel. The laughter in the image belied the weight of despair that now hung in the air. His wide smile seemed to mock her, prompting a swell of anguish that nearly suffocated her. But in her relentless grief, something deeper stirred, a flicker of defiance ignited by a deep, primal rage. Suddenly, a moment of clarity pierced through the fog of despair. In that haunting silence, Sarah transformed her pain into a hardened resolve that roared within her. She envisioned herself not as a victim, but as a mother who had the power to reclaim her child. Daniel's face became her rallying cry, and she clung to the anger that twisted in her gut, nurturing it into resolve. With a burning heart, she took to the clandestine corners of her community, seeking allies among fellow humans who had also suffered the torment of the raiders. Each shared story of loss only fueled her fire. These memories became the kindling for her revenge. Among them was a grizzled former soldier, battle-tested and weary, who understood the stakes all too well, and the fire in his eyes mirrored her own. In time, Sarah's grief morphed into purpose. She transformed from a grieving mother into a fierce warrior, driven by a consuming rage that no one in the Galactic Council could understand. She began to forge connections, rallying those who had been wronged. With a small group of allies at her side, she took her first steps toward the heart of darkness, ready to confront the horrors that awaited her. Sarah stood before a motley assembly in a shabby bar on the outskirts of Teranova, her voice trembling but determined. "We cannot stay silent. If we do, we let the raiders take our lives, our families, our humanity." The faces of her fellow colonists, shadowed by loss and doubt, shifted as she shared her story, a tale of unyielding love and searing betrayal. As the words flowed, the room seemed to pulse with a collective heartbeat. It was in that dimly lit space, tinged with the scent of desperation and hope, that something profound began to materialize. Bit by bit, men and women of all backgrounds crept closer to her cause, ignited by solidarity and shared grief. Among her ragtag band of allies was the former soldier, gruff and reluctant at first, who understood warfare in ways that shook him to his core. He, too, had lost everything, to become a ghost in his own life. "I can teach you to fight," he rumbled, his weathered voice commanding attention, "but it comes with blood and sacrifice. Are you ready?" Their bond solidified with shared tales, each story layered upon the next like bricks constructing a wall of determination. Together they became a tapestry of anguish and resilience, united by their longing for vengeance against the alien menace. One by one, each person vowed to stand up, to retaliate, to break the chains that bound them to victimhood. As Sarah assembled her makeshift army, word spread across the colony. She reached out to a range of beings, forging unlikely alliances with sympathetic aliens who had suffered under the ruthless tyranny of the same raiders. Together, they clandestinely formed a coalition capable of resisting the oppression. Each interaction deepened the bond they shared. Trust unfurled amid fury and desperation. But shadows of prejudice loomed over them as the Galactic Council brushed aside their pleas, blinded by the presumption that humans could not be soldiers, only victims. Yet Sarah's coalition thrived on those very emotions. The fury that boiled in their veins would soon become their strength. In their hearts, they knew, they would rise against the darkness and shatter the illusions across the galaxy. In a hidden underground bunker, Sarah gathered her coalition, a war room filled with flickering holographic maps and tactical data. The energy in the air was electric, suffused with the potent blend of fear and excitement. They were about to become warriors, and Sarah stood at the helm, drawing on every ounce of resolve within her. "What we face is not just an enemy, it's an entire belief system that sees us as lesser. But we will prove them wrong," she declared, her voice steady. The room echoed with murmurs of agreement, and the flames of determination blazed brighter. Here, they didn't just plan a rescue. They plotted a rebellion. With the veteran soldier leading the strategy, they dissected the enemy's stronghold, intricate security systems, guard rotations, and escape routes. The stakes were high, with every misstep potentially leading to deadly consequences. Yet Sarah found strength in her intuition, supported by her newfound allies' expertise. This would be a carefully orchestrated symphony of chaos. As the plan unfolded, Sarah began to piece together how humanity's emotional rage could serve as both sword and shield. She reminded her allies that their grief could fuel their fight, that the love one has for family could become a weapon. They weren't fighting just for survival. They were staging an uprising for every soul robbed of happiness, every family separated by the darkness. The coalition dove into preparation, a whirlwind of training, hacking drills led by the brilliant alien engineer, and stealth tactics developed with the soldiers' expertise. As days turned into nights, they became a cohesive unit, pushing against the boundaries of fear with every sparring match, every successful maneuver. Bonds formed amidst laughter and tears, and with every attempt, Sarah's heart swelled with pride. Yet lurking beneath the surface was the ever-looming threat of failure and loss, wrapped tightly around her resolve. As she contemplated the Galactic Council's indifference, she felt a fierce rage boiling. "If they refuse to see us for who we are, we'll show them. We'll break their illusions once and for all," Sarah vowed, igniting an undeterred fire in her comrades. They made a pact, to fight not just for the sake of vengeance, but to transform the perceptions of an entire galaxy that deemed humanity weak. It was this promise that set the stage for their audacious mission, solidifying their resolve to challenge the very foundations of oppression that had long kept them shackled. The night had come, thick with tension as shadows swirled around Sarah and her assembled cacophony of allies. Under the cover of darkness, they approached the towering fortress of the Raider Lair, a menacing structure adorned with the trophies of conquests, glistening like bloodied jewels beneath the pale moonlight. Heartbeats synchronized in anticipation, each warrior resolved to reclaim not just a child, but the dignity of their kin. As they breached the outer defenses, the coalition moved like ghosts, relying on stealth rather than brute force. Every calculated footstep brought them closer to their goal. In the chilling silence, Sarah's heart raced, the memories of Daniel driving her forward. Her eyes narrowed, locking onto the flickering screens that illuminated the Raider stronghold's interior, homes of unimaginable horror for those held captive. But as the perimeter alarms wailed, adrenaline surged. A skirmish erupted, a blinding clash of energy blasts and guttural alien war cries. In that instant, fear ignited into fury. Sarah's very essence transformed into a tempest of rage. Her allies followed her lead, defiance burning bright as they hurled themselves against the enemy with fierce tactics honed during their preparation. "Press forward!" the soldier roared, drawing the attention of the guards while Sarah darted through the chaos with a primal instinct. She skillfully ducked and weaved, each blow striking with a weight born from grief and determination. The lingering thoughts of Daniel's face drove her, propelling her forward even as foes fell around her. Amid the cacophony, Quilorus, the tech-savvy alien, worked tirelessly, hacking defense systems to send guards plunging into darkness. His proficiency was astounding, echoing the very heartbeat of hope through Sarah's coalition at every turn. They fought fiercely, motivated by purpose, each movement an act of defiance against their perceived weakness. But the unpredictable tide of battle turned as they approached the heart of the fortress. Aliens swarmed like locusts, fierce and relentless, and Sarah felt the tension tighten around her heart. Time slowed as she glanced at her comrades, dread mingling with resolve. This was their moment. Beliefs were about to change, and the brutal reality of their strength would soon become evident. With adrenaline surging through her, Sarah pressed on, her own ferocity propelling her forward. This wasn't merely about survival. It was about reshaping the fabric of the galaxy itself. As the team barreled onward, determination solidified into a singular thought. They were no longer just fighting to reclaim Daniel. They were fighting for the very soul of humanity against every judgment ever cast upon them. Back in their majesty-laden chamber, the Galactic Council convened, faced with increasingly frantic reports of chaos spilling from the Raider stronghold. Shockwaves rippled through their ranks, a growing acknowledgement that they might have underestimated the resolve of humanity. High Counselor Varnath paced, his smug arrogance wavering as he observed the nervous energy among his peers. "Look at this data. Human emotions are volatile," he spat dismissively, citing old biases that had long kept the Council blind to the tenacity rising among colonies. But, as he spoke, unease hung in the room, thick enough to cut. Images flickering across the view screens captured the brutal battles happening planets away, highlighting Sarah's relentless charge. A mother transformed into a symbol of rebellion. The council members began to murmur among themselves, their discussion shifting from dismissing humanity as primitive to contemplating the implications of a vengeful force rising so unexpectedly. The visions of chaos and unity rapidly became inseparable as they witnessed human rage entwined with courage, the realization dawning on them that they could no longer remain indifferent. Conflicted murmurs cloaked the chamber as one counselor leaned forward. "Perhaps," she began, her voice heavy with uncertainty, We've underestimated their potential to form alliances. Look at the unity they've built amid suffering." The spark of awareness spread through the council, igniting a panic where there had once been disdain. They scrambled to develop a strategy, a response to this uprising that threatened their authority. As the council debated, words like collaboration and recognition began to slip into their conversations, each syllable dripping with uncertainty. Suddenly, Varnath's voice boomed, cutting through their concerns. "We cannot allow humanity to take the lead. Their emotional impulses will lead to chaos. We must reassert control." Yet, as they spoke of control, the images of horror pouring forth from the battlefield fleshed out a reality they could no longer ignore. Sweat trickled down Varnath's brow. He could feel the ground beneath him shifting as more reports flooded in detailing Sarah's fierce prowess and the dramatic shifts among the raided worlds. The council sat anchored in their doubts and fears, grappling over their ignorance. Little did they know that Sarah was not simply inciting chaos. she was engineering an awakening, igniting a collective strength grounded not just in rage, but in an indomitable spirit that even they would eventually have to reckon with. The landscape of choice shifted, but conviction continued to elude them amidst the quaking fear of being stripped of power that lay just beyond their grasp. Within the heart of the alien stronghold, chaos reigned. Sarah and her coalition stormed through corridors, battling guards with fierce tenacity. Their goal was no longer isolated to an extraction. They were now insurgents reclaiming what had been stolen. Not just Daniel, but their sense of identity in the universe. The confrontation reached its apex when they turned the corner and faced Dorax, the infamous leader of the Raider Force, known throughout the galaxy for his merciless tactics. His twisted smirk sent chills down Sarah's spine as he towered over them, flanked by formidable guards. "You pitiful humans have come to die," he spat, his voice filled with venom. A surge of adrenaline electrified Sarah as she met his gaze. "You took everything from me, but I'm not afraid," she shouted, every word a spell woven with defiance. A cut across her cheek and a fresh wound on her heart only fueled the fire within her. The rest of her comrades rallied behind her, emboldened by her words. They were no longer mere victims. They were warriors united under a banner forged from love and loss. As the battle erupted, flames of conflict ignited around them. Energy blasts pulsed through the air, illuminating the darkness with bursts of light and the smells of scorched metal. Sarah's heart raced as she fought toe-to-toe with the enemy, the memories of her son displacing fear and transforming it into determination. But as her allies fought valiantly, the chaos reached a fever pitch. A rogue energy blast struck, sending sparks everywhere while her closest companion fell amid the fray. The sight of Doug crumpling to the ground overloaded Sarah with anguish, but that agony morphed into an explosive rage. With a primal roar, she surged forward, channeling her pain into a force that caught even her comrades off guard. The dynamics of the battle shifted, and in that moment of fury, she became a whirlwind of flashing fists and resolute hearts, a force strong enough to shake the very foundations of Dorax's regime. Even he hesitated, caught off guard by the fire flickering in her eyes. The tide was turning, and the fate of not just her son, but all of humanity, lay in their hands. Victory had come at a price, and as the dust settled on the battlefield, Sarah felt the weight of her emotions heavy on her chest. Amid the echoes of clash and victory, she sought solace in the shadows, spiraling into despair as the price of war unfolded around her. Doug's absence carved a hole in her heart, each moment haunted by thoughts of sacrifices made along the path they had chosen. In that suffocating silence, Sarah wrestled with conflicting feelings. Her joy at rescuing Daniel was marred by grief over the loss of her ally. Memories cascaded through her mind, laughter shared, moments stolen forever by the trauma of war. Closing her eyes, she fought against the tide of despair threatening to engulf her spirit. And yet, in that moment of vulnerability, an epiphany surfaced. Her tears became a catalyst for transformation, unearthing the raw power hidden in her grief and rage. She realized she had to embrace the depths of her emotions. The very thing the Galactic Council deemed a weakness was, in truth, a wellspring of raging strength. Her pain and her love would fuel not just her vengeance, but act as a guiding light for her allies. With renewed determination, Sarah rejoined her team, her words and spirit igniting those around her. Every sacrifice we make is worth fighting for. We are not just fighting to endure, we are fighting for lives, for families, and for love. The room began to fill with a fervor as others opened up, sharing their pain and anger. It became a cathartic ritual, each person peeling back layers of fear, allowing their shared experiences to intertwine and build an unbreakable bond. The coalition stood stronger than ever, united not just by anger but by love. Their emotional expression galvanized them into a collective force. Their resolve grew louder, and their hearts beat in unison, pounding with the energy of hope. As laughter broke out amid the somber atmosphere, Sarah felt the weight of darkness lighten just a fraction, a reassuring reminder that they were not defined by their losses, but rather their collective strength. With the fire of vengeance rekindled, they prepared once more for a fight. this time armed not just with rage, but with the clarity of their shared humanity. If they were to conquer the darkness, they would do it together, transformed into an unstoppable tidal wave of resilient hearts, unwilling to succumb to despair any longer. Their renewed sense of purpose propelled Sarah and her band of resilient warriors deeper into the heart of the fortress. Together, they maneuvered through dark hallways, the air thick with anticipation, as they felt the looming energies of captured souls ahead. With every stride, hope surged anew. The moment of truth was finally upon them. As they approached Daniel's cell, Sarah's heart raced. The air hung thick with tension as Keloris delicately hacked the locking mechanism, determination etched into his brow. Sarah's breath hitched. Would he be okay? Moments felt like lifetimes, each tick of the clock drawing closer to her son's freedom. Then it happened. With a soft click and a whoosh, the door opened, revealing Daniel, pale but alive, chained like a prisoner in a nightmare. The sight of her son struck like lightning, driving every instinct buried deep into awakening. "Daniel!" Sarah cried, racing forward. Her son's eyes widened, tears pooling as he stumbled into her embrace. "Mommy," he sobbed, his little body shaking with fear and relief. In that moment, time froze. The world around them dimmed. Surrounded by enemy forces, the fear of loss momentarily faded as they clung to one another. A mother's love woven with a child's need for safety. But the relief was short-lived. Alarms wailed furiously above, and dread crashed over Sarah as reality set in. The raiders would come for them, and fast. "We have to move," she urged, gripping Daniel's hand tightly, vulnerability boiling over into action. As a flood of guards descended upon their position, confusion erupted. Keloris and the former soldiers sprang into action, holding back the tide of enemies, as Sarah swept Daniel into her arms, every fiber of her being on high alert. The echoes of destruction rang out. All their battles had led to this, the culmination of her vengeance and love crashing together amid fury and fire. "Let's go," Sarah urged, pushing through the fray as explosive energy clashed around them. In the chaos, her allies fought valiantly, their hearts pounding in sync with hers. Each confrontation surged with urgency. Lives hung in the balance as they fought not just for survival, but to honor the sacrifices that led them to this moment. As they maneuvered further into the heart of the stronghold, the burden of responsibility weighed heavy. Yet with each defeated raider, Sarah felt their purpose solidify. They were more than just names on the roster of loss. They were warriors forged in flame, and she was climbing the mountain of redemption with her son held tight. The portal to escape loomed ahead, a gateway to freedom, resilience, and unity beyond the destruction. Humanity's revenge had awakened, and alongside it, a promise reshaping destinies across galaxies. As Sarah and her warriors broke free from the clutches of the raiders, the Galactic Council convened to confront the changing tides. Panic thrummed through the air, tremors of uncertainty shaking the foundations of their authority. Each member sat anchored in their lofty seats, grappling with news that Sarah's rebellion had transformed the stars into a battleground far beyond their understanding. High Counselor Varnath paced furiously, tension woven tight in his posture as urgent warnings flooded his holoscreen. "This must be contained. Chaos is an ember fueling a storm." He slammed his palm onto the table, demanding control, unaware of the storm he stoked. Other counselors exchanged uneasy glances, their apprehension rising with each grim report of humanity's defiance. Slowly, their arrogance began to fade as the harrowing reality sank in. Footage of Sarah, her fierce eyes blazing with righteous fury, played in the rotunda, igniting a murmur among members. What once seemed trivial now glimpsed the ferocity of a mother scorned, and the spark of change lit a fire in the hearts of even the most stubborn counselors. "Look at the devastation they're inflicting," a counselor ventured hesitantly. "We've assumed they were weak, yet here she stands, a warrior unmatched, rallying support from across galaxies. We've massively underestimated humanity." Unease began to spread, a realization that perhaps they harbored an irreplaceable power amongst them, one they could no longer dismiss. Amidst spiraling doubts, Varnath scrambled to regain control. "We must act quickly," he bellowed. But echoes of doubt crept amongst the assembly. Whispers transformed into an urgent chorus calling for strategic engagement with the humanity they had long overlooked. We must not disregard the potential for collaboration, a partnership to quell this uprising, another argued. As tensions peaked in the council chamber, the atmosphere shifted, signaling a transformative moment. Members wrestled with the idea that they needed to embrace humanity's emotional surges, turning perceived weakness into strength, and forge an alliance built on mutual respect, not just command. Deep in the stronghold, Sarah fought tooth and nail alongside her comrades, the foundations of the galaxy trembling with each victorious blow. The Galactic Council, caught in the whirlwind of humanity's awakening, stood on the precipice, considering a partnership that could alter the fabric of existence itself, unaware that their authority had just been rewritten by an unstoppable force fueled by love, vengeance, and unity. Victories echoed like thunderclaps through the galaxy in the wake of Sarah's fierce resurgence, and the enemy had begun to tremble at the mention of her name, a name now respected, feared, and known among the oppressed. With Daniel safely returned and grief-driven vengeance transformed into purpose, Sarah's wrath became an unstoppable force, a rallying cry against tyranny. As news spread of their victories, the raiders solidified their efforts to suppress the rising tide of resistance. But Sarah, now a symbol of hope and defiance, ignited flames in the hearts of many. Each skirmish in the void of space became not just a battle against the raiders, but rather an uprising, drawing allies from corners once thought unreachable. "We fight not just because we must, but because we deserve to reclaim our destiny," she shouted, rallying troops who had once been lost and afraid. Her fierce determination emboldened entire communities, binding them together in the shared understanding that they were not alone in their suffering. Together, they faced adversities head-on, reclaiming their power through unity. You could feel the shift in the cosmic balance. Beliefs once thought immutable began to unravel. Every victory claimed drew entire civilizations closer together, a symphony of rebellion reverberating across the stars. Sarah had unveiled the truth, that humanity's emotions held value. They weren't mere inconsistencies, but rather powerful weapons in their arsenal against oppression. As reports of their fierce endeavors swirled around the galaxy, the fallen tyrants began to suffer at the hands of a collective spirit driven by vulnerability and vengeance. And yet, Sarah understood the true battle lay ahead. The Galactic Council's speculation transformed into fear, and as her coalition rallied strength, voices from all walks of life intertwined. They forged an identity, resilient and unyielding. In every encounter, Sarah fought with an elegance bred from raw emotion, a mother's love fueling every strike against the corrupted power. She had become more than just a warrior. She had embodied hope in every sense. With fresh allies pouring in from every corner, she led them into the heart of the enemy, forever altering the fate of those who had suffered in silence. The stakes were high. Their next move would determine not just their survival, but the destiny of future generations. A mother's wrath had awakened a legion, and their battle was just getting started. As they prepared for one final confrontation with the raiders, determination rippled through the ranks. This time, their voices would be heard, echoing throughout the stars. Months passed, and as shadows of doubt clawed at the Galactic Council's hold on power, the time came for Sarah to confront them directly. In the grand chamber where decisions were made and lives disregarded, she strode forward like a warrior wreathed in fire. The air thickened with tension as her eyes, stormy with determination, met those of the counselors, faces now tinged with apprehension and guilt. "Look around you," she began, her voice cutting through the silence like a sword. "You've been blinded by arrogance, believing we were beneath you. We are not your sacrifices. We are the forge of resilience. You think emotions weaken us. I am here to show you differently." Each word hung in the air, heavy with the weight of her journey, resonating deep within the assembly. The council's facade cracked, and hesitation rippled through their ranks as they scrambled to maintain their meticulously constructed order. "You cannot wield emotion like a weapon," Varnath interjected, but the sting of his earlier arrogance now tasted bitter in his mouth. Sarah's fervor was infectious. The room's atmosphere shifted, morphing from disdain to contemplation, a crack in their haughty veneer. As she narrated the crucible of her struggles, recounting the battle losses and losses of their shared kinship, her voice faltered only once, evoking raw emotion. Every life taken is a reminder that we are human. Our ghosts fight alongside us, demanding justice. Her proclamation sent jolts through the counselors, their expressions twisting from skepticism to introspection. There is power in humanity, something you failed to recognize. It's time to stand beside us, not above us. Sarah's heart raced as her declaration echoed through the chamber. Silence engulfed them, forcing the counselors to confront the undeniable truth rippling through their midst. The very existence they had disregarded had risen to challenge their authority. In that crucial moment, souls once tethered to denial began to reconsider their stance. One by one, counselors began to murmur their agreements, acknowledging the burgeoning resilience and undying spirit they had long ignored. Perhaps, just perhaps, partnering with humanity could restore balance throughout the galaxy and instill life anew. As the council grappled with the reality that a mother's wrath could shift the tides of power, Sarah felt a weight lift off her shoulders. Resolution blossomed amid the uncertainty. They were on the brink of forging alliances anew, and her indomitable spirit had led the way. The fight for humanity's worthiness was no longer a singular endeavor. It was a movement that embraced the full spectrum of the human experience. The days that followed Sarah's confrontation with the Galactic Council were electric, alive with transformation. The previously distant leaders opened their ranks to discussions of collaboration, an unlikely alliance forming under the banner of unity where darkness had once prevailed. Sarah's symbol of rebellion morphed into a beacon of hope, and whispers of her journey traveled on the solar winds like wildfire. Galactic representatives gathered to strategize, melding their powers, each bringing their strengths to the negotiation table. The blending of cultures ignited ideas once thought impossible, treaties that redefined relationships not based on dominance, but respect, consideration, and empathy. Sarah became the ambassador of humanity, sharing tales defined by love, resilience, and the deep-seated need for justice circulating in her blood. As settlements across the galaxy began to welcome and enlist humanity's warriors, the remnants of Sarah's coalition thrived. Alliances blossomed as oppressed beings banded together, driven by a common goal of liberation and the seduction of hope. Each newfound partnership solidified their spirit, inspiring movements that had languished in fear. Anti-raider campaigns spread like wildfires, intertwining societies and diminishing the silencing grip the raiders once held. Sarah's team became a symbol of solidarity, leading efforts to protect the innocent, offering hope and strength where despair had once festered. The galaxy thrummed with a promise of change, a promise of a united front where humanity stood not in shadows, but proudly within the captain's circle. As allegiances grew amidst the warmth of camaraderie, the ghosts of the fallen whispered gratitude and assurance. They too contributed to something monumental. Sarah felt the weight of her journey transform into something palpable, sensing that they were carving a legacy built on strength rather than strife. The Galactic Council stood transformed as well, moving from mere spectators to partners in progress. They began to listen, learning the value of balance, respect, and emotion's inherent strengths. As Sarah gazed upon her thriving coalition, bright stars charted new paths above, illuminating the breadth of possibilities awaiting them, all born from the unyielding love of a mother transformed. And as nations rallied behind a common cause, the galaxy realized its greatest lesson, that true strength lies not just in might, but in the unwavering bonds built on shared experiences, forged by love and relentless hope. From the ashes of despair emerged a radiant legacy, a testament to the power that arises when humanity's deepest emotions are awakened, their voices no longer subdued, but proclaimed throughout the universe.